Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
We have an exciting show for you today. Important interview. Our first guest at 15 minutes past the hour, Joni Seith. She's an author, artist, mentor, and speaker on redemptive suffering, prayer of the saints, and miracles, and her own conversion story. She actually comes from a cultural Jewish background, and she shared her testimony a number of years ago on the amazing Journey Home program. And she has a book out, and we're going to talk about that book entitled Pain of Grace, Living and Suffering with Dignity. And I think it's very timely because there's a lot of suffering in our world right now. There's a lot of physical suffering, emotional suffering. There's a lot of suffering of loneliness, all kinds of things that we're facing, especially post-COVID. And with all the issues that we're seeing in the world and the attacks on our faith. And Mother Angelica suffered a great deal. And she taught us so much about suffering as well. So very timely to have Joni on with us this morning. Welcome back, Catholic Connection, 17 minutes past the hour. I say this lots of times, and I'll repeat it again on Thursday. One of my favorite quotes from Mother Angelica, well, there are so many, but she says, "Holiness is not for wimps. The cross is not negotiable, sweetheart. It is a requirement." That is so, so true. Wherever we are in our faith walk, if we have faith, if we don't have faith, we live in a fallen world. So every single person is going to suffer. Nobody gets out of this world unscathed. But what our Catholic faith gives us so beautifully is this teaching on redemptive suffering. Mother Angelica knew that and taught that, and our guest, Joni Seith, knows that as well. A beautiful book, Pain of Grace, Living and Suffering with Dignity. Joni, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Teresa, for having me.
All right, so you've been on our airways before through the Journey Home program, but tell us about this book, because it really is a very personal story, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. And it was very hard to let go of that and be very, very vulnerable. But I really felt that God was asking me to do that. So it's my story, but it's also, in a sense, could be anybody's story. We all, what you just said, we all suffer, we all have issues. Even if we look like we don't, everybody has some issues. And I think God wanted me to write this book so I could share what He has done through my life and the ups and downs of the difficulties, and thinking, where is God in this? What is He doing? But just to look for Him is a good thing in our sufferings. You know, we just, it's when we shut Him out, and in this time that we even suffer more, because He has so much to give us in our sufferings if we allow it, even though that's difficult many times. So, yeah, my journey starts, I was Jewish and then converted to Catholicism when I was a young lady at 23, and then got married, have 4 beautiful little children, and then my body fell apart. I have a connective tissue illness called Ehlers Danlos, and literally my body just falls apart daily. So trying to figure out how to walk with the Lord, do what He's calling me to do, but also in this pain. And He's taught me a journey of love that I never expected. Just the other day, I was having a really rough day, and my go-to is, who am I praying for, Lord? Who is this for? And I was praying for someone who asked me to pray for them, and I was like, thank you for letting me love this person in this way. And thinking that and hearing it in my heart really showed me, and continues to show me on a daily basis, how the Lord is drawing us into His way of love, denying ourselves completely, which is very difficult, pain, right? Pain of grace. But when we do that, we not only grow more loving to others, we also are able to enter into His heart of how much He loves us. And then that's life-giving. What I'm seeing, and I'm sure you are too, daily, is the lack of hope that people have in this world.
I just talked about that at the top of the hour in introducing the show for today with your book.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping to bring through my story, is that there's hope for all of us, that God hasn't abandoned us in our sufferings, and it's an invitation for us to walk even more closely with Him. And reading the story, my life's been very difficult physically, but also so much joy. And one of my favorite lines from the Bible is, Lord, give us joy to balance our afflictions. And that's what I have found, walking with Him. When I first got sick and was very scared, what's happening? Am I going to be able to be a mom and a wife and all that? He showed me despair, but from the point of view of a person with faith. And that was such a gift to me, because I realized that made all the difference.
Right.
When we don't have Him in our life to carry that other part of the cross, the other part of the, what is that word, that He's carrying it with us, a plowing field, and we pick that up. I can't think of the word. But we have to allow Him to pick up the other part. If we try to do it ourselves, we can't. And that's what I'm seeing in the world today, is so many people despairing because we don't have what we need to get through the hard times. And that's why we're losing so many, and even young people. They've lost hope. And our hope is from the Lord. Our joy is from the Lord. The world is making everyone see, worldly, that everything comes from it. Material things are, we're only worth what we can do.
And yet, if that were true, if that were the answer, then everybody should be, deliriously happy, right? Considering everything we have in the world right now, technology-wise, especially in this first world country of ours.
Right, but I think that we're also seeing very in our face the lie, that we aren't happy. So there has to be more, and that's what Jesus brings to us. That's what a relationship with Him is. We have to be friends with people. We're relational, right? We need each other to help each other carry our own crosses. But to have that relationship with Him, who can do amazing things where we can't even imagine.
Right.
So I'm hoping that this book shows it's very raw, very real of my difficulties of accepting a lot of these things. But when we say yes to Him in our difficulties, and it might be that's all we have left. And that's with me. That's all I had left. I came into the church because I was being plagued by horrible, horrible nightmares every night. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I had nowhere to turn. I had tried everything the world had to offer. But the time came that I'm going to go out of my mind. And I remember just yelling out to the Lord, if you are there and you want me, then you have to stop these dreams, these nightmares, and I'll be yours. And it took me to get to that point of emptying, just total abandonment.
Yeah, total abandonment, putting yourself at the foot of the cross and just offering it up, as my mother always said. If you don't mind my asking, there's a reporter in me, what were the nightmares about?
Oh, gosh. So I was Jewish, so I didn't have any Christianity background, so the nightmares were horrible. I was being buried alive every night by evil monks and nuns chanting, and I could feel the weight of the dirt thrown on me every single night. It was paralyzing for an entire year. And so all I knew from Christianity was from those nightmares, right? I mean,
and that would make you want to run in the opposite direction as opposed to running into the church. So that's really interesting. Yeah,
so it's God's grace. When I am signing my books, I always put, what St. Teresa said, all is grace.
All is grace,
I was talking to a priest a couple months ago, and he was like, how's it going, and what, he was trying to see how I was doing and everything, and I said, I feel so blessed because I feel like God has, in so many ways, protected me and guided me through my life, and I'm just, nothing earned. It's just His gift.
It's just grace. Yeah, Joni, hang on. We're going to continue this amazing conversation on this beautiful story, and so appreciate Joni opening herself up and being very vulnerable and sharing not only her journey into the church, but her journey of redemptive suffering. The church has such a beautiful teaching on this. I sound like a broken record for those of us who can remember LPs and broken records. It's a beautiful teaching, especially with teachers, for example, like John Paul II. More on the book, Pain of Grace, when we come back. Joni Seith walks readers through her very interesting and eye-opening conversion story from a culturally Jewish background to Catholicism, and also relates her struggles to live in grace despite her physical challenges. A beautiful book, Pain of Grace, Living and Suffering with Dignity. The author is our guest, Joni J. Seith. How do we get the book, Joni?
Amazon has it. So
Okay.
if you just go to Amazon and type in either my name or Pain of Grace, it should come up.
And we'll put a link to it also at Catholic Connection on the archives. Every day we archive our shows and all the information. All right, so please do finish that story about how you're having these nightmares, basically being tortured by religious, and then you end up coming into the Catholic Church.
And God's sense of humor, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like, that's how he's worked with me. So the next morning, after I just poured it on the line the night before and said, "You stop these dreams and then I'll be yours." Well, the next morning I woke up, sat up on the end of my bed and looked up to the sky and said, "Okay, now what? I don't know what to do, but I'm yours." And immediately he started sending Christian people in my life. It was just amazing. And I never had problems with Christianity, even as a Jewish young girl. It's like, if God wants to make himself a man, and, I don't have a problem with that. He's God. So I went to different churches each Sunday to see where I fit in. And I even went back to the temple to make sure, or the synagogue, to make sure I wasn't making a big mistake. But something always was missing. Always was missing. And so I happened upon a Catholic church and on a Sunday, and I was like, okay, I'll try the Catholic church out. And it was very Jewish to me. It was very kosher, the hand washing, the songs, in the readings, and I felt very comfortable. But then bells rang, and it drew my attention to the front, and the priest was holding up this white disc. And I had my head had no idea what was going on, but my heart leapt out and said, "My Lord and my God."
Oh, I just got the chills.
I just started to weep. I have goosebumps even telling you now. I just started to weep, and I knew I had to receive him. And I called a friend's mother who I knew was Catholic. As soon as I got home, I said, "What do I need to do? I need to receive Jesus in this Eucharist." And the next day I was signed up for RCIA.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was amazing. And I, never turned back. It's such a gift. I have a very strong devotion to the Eucharist. And that's where we find that joy and that unity of ourselves to the Lord on the cross is in the Eucharist. There's a beautiful prayer called the Servants of the Eucharist, and we consecrate ourselves, our pain, our struggles, our lives, our very beings. We united our hearts with Jesus in the Eucharist, and we give him our life. And when we do that, we're not only on the foot of the cross, at the bottom of the cross, but he embraces us. He comes down to embrace us and lift us high on the cross, but also into his heart.
Right.
It is just intimate and beautiful, and I think it's the root of redemptive suffering. And we, without the Lord, could do nothing with our pain, right? We could do nothing except be miserable. But when we give it to him willingly, he turns it into graces. I don't know how, but I
don't know how he does it. I think it's really important just to say, okay, that this really stinks when I'm going through whatever it is, whether it's physical suffering, emotional suffering, or there's a relationship issue. Lord, this really stinks. I don't like it, but what do you want me to do with this? I know there's a lesson in here somewhere, right?
Yep. And that's what the whole book is. The lesson, me pouring out my heart saying, I'm not happy right now with what you're doing. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. But I'm choosing to trust. I need to trust. And I think that leap of faith is so important. When we give it to him, he can do so many beautiful things. We never expected the gift of our redemption, right? Mm-hmm. We just had, Good Friday, and then how many of us would have expected Easter Sunday. But that's what he gives to us when we trust him, when we turn to him. And so that's what my journey has been about. I have a beautiful life. I have an amazing life. I love the Lord. I love the Eucharist. I'm in pain 24/7.
Wow.
But I know I'm walking with him. And sometimes it's just laying in bed and saying, Lord, it's yours. You get in so much pain sometimes that you can't even think in words. So, but he knows my heart. He knows that I want to be with him. And that's where I find my comfort. That's where his love is for us that suffer, which again, everyone suffers. And that's why I think that God had me write this book, that in immense pain, whether it's physical or mental, he's there for us. Mm-hmm. And his mother, oh my goodness, she's a rock star.
Mama Mary, a good Jewish mother. You must relate to her, right?
Oh yeah, my last chapter is called Jewish Mothers.
Yep.
I love her so much. And when I'm too much me and am unwilling to bend to the Lord, Mary is there for me. And sometimes it's a hit over the head by a 2x4, but she takes me by the hand and says, we're doing this together. We're going to walk with Jesus together. And so I guess the book is a invitation to meet my friends. I know that sounds so trite, but really, to meet the Lord in our sufferings, to sit with Mary at the foot of the cross and just let her hold us sometime.
Right, and I also think, too, your journey is such a journey of trust, because how does one come into the church after the experience you had with these dreams and Lord saying, trust me, I got this, and then also bringing you into the church? It has so much in terms of not just an understanding from Scripture, but, for example, in the summary of your book, you're quoting the document from John Paul II on redemptive suffering. We have teachings on redemptive suffering, and so the Lord knew what you needed way ahead of time, even before you needed it. I thought you needed it.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Now, honestly, I have to tell you, I still have problems with Gregorian chant. That's the one thing that has lingered, is that sometimes I'm like, I'm not ready for that. And the really funny thing is that my godfather, who brought me, came with me into the church, and that the woman I had went to, they're my godparents, she's my godmother, and she brought me to a Benedictine monk, and he would answer all my questions, and he became my godfather.
That's
but
so
I'll tell you, I had a little bit of trepidation with that one. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for monks,
Yeah.
But I don't know if that God, again, in his wisdom that I will see one day, hopefully, he knew this is exactly what I needed. And to see that where I only saw darkness and pain and fear and the heaviness of this crushing dirt on my soul, that would one day awaken me to the beauty of sisters and monks and priests. My son's a priest, and my husband's a deacon. So, yeah.
My husband's a deacon. My husband's a deacon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. You're a fellow DW, deacon's wife. That's awesome.
That's right. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we are so blessed. So, yeah, God turns what we think a lot of times on its head.
Right, and I say he always turns, being that I'm Italian, he turns lemons into limoncello, girlfriend. Let me tell you.
Yum.
Yum. Listen, we got to go. Great talking with you. Love to have you back on. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you for your openness, your honesty, and your realness. Joni Seith, the book is Pain of Grace, Living and Suffering with Dignity. God bless you, Joni. Keep going, girlfriend. You're doing great work.
You've been listening to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo. Catholic Connection is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio, and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Our producer is Andrew Kruchek. For copies of this program or for more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net. That's AVE MariaRadio.net. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for another edition of Catholic Connection.